Our first question, please.
Good evening, panel. Tim Craze. Should we believe the captains of industry and retail or Lord Mandelson?
Nigel Farage.
Well, look, let's just take a step back here. What is actually happening is that a proposed tax increase that the Labour government are bringing in, for the first time since David Cameron has been leader, the party are not supporting. Because previously, every time Labour did anything, the Tories said, me too. This time, for the first time, they're saying that they won't increase taxes as much as Labour will. I would suggest to you, this is not something to get very excited about. If we believe that employers' national insurance is a tax on jobs, and I do believe that it is, and if we want to get out of the hopeless mess that we're in, then the answer has got to be we need to have a big shift in the British economy. We need radical cuts in the public sector in this country. We've increased the public sector by 850,000 employees since Tony Blair came to power in 1997, and the UKIP proposal would be to cut public spending by £50 billion in the first year and to reinvest that by abolishing, over the course of a 5-year government, or maybe a 4-year government, abolishing national insurance on employers totally. We've got to get growth back into Britain.
And you're simply not levelling with people. And I think what people want in this is honesty about the cuts that they may face and the spending reductions that they may face, not just attempt to have
the honesty piece of the fact that we're in a hole for £180 billion this year, and yet the general election debate is focusing around a tiny, piddling sum of £6 billion. When are the British public actually going to be told the truth, which is we need to have massive cuts, not just £6 billion, we need to cut by £50 billion. If we don't do that, interest rates will start going up, and I'll tell you the first way we can start saving money: stop sending £45 million a day to our friends in the European Union.
OK.
There's a good start.
Dan Garnett, with the resignation today of another member of the Drug Advisory Council, does the panel think that it's time to set up a truly independent body free of government interference?
Nigel Farage.
Well, this mephedrone business, I've got a son at university in this county, in Exeter, who tells me this has reached crazed proportions over the course of the last few weeks. I wondered what the government was going to do. Would it try and ban it or not? It, of course, has had to go to the European Union to ask for permission to ban it, which is why this has been delayed. And at least the Irish government, Peter, unlike you, have been honest in saying this. However, that said, I would go further than the question. The questioner asked, do we need a proper independent panel? I would go further. I have a feeling that prohibition in this whole area simply isn't working. Every year we say that we're going to fight the war on drugs harder than we fought it the year before. And I think this is one of those areas of life, and whilst people may find this distasteful, I think we need a proper, full Royal Commission on this whole area of drugs to investigate whether perhaps life might be better for millions of people living on council estates that are dominated by the drugs dealers, that are dominated by the crime that surrounds the money that people raise to get these drugs. Let's find out, through a Royal Commission, whether perhaps we should decriminalise drugs, whether we should licence them, licence the users and sell them at Boots, because frankly, if you add up the cost of drugs to society, the big problem is the fact that they're criminal and everything that goes with that. And I think there is an argument that says if we decriminalised it, we'd make the lives of millions of people far better than they are today.
Peter Hain.
So there you have it, the great UKIP prospectus for Britain, decriminalising drugs and pull out of Europe.
Well, I'm sorry, Peter, but your drugs policy is failing year on year, isn't it? The drugs problem gets worse, the cost of policing it, the cost of prisons, it gets worse every year.
Well, I'd like to see any of your candidates get serious votes on a policy of just a drugs-free for all.
I didn't say that. I said have a Royal Commission and investigate it, and you know that. If you examine the percentage of crime, the amount of police time, the amount of court time, and the amount of people in prison, if you add it all up, drugs are costing this country 50 to 70 billion pounds a year, all because or because it's a criminal activity. And I would argue that when the ban on methadone comes in, the big winners are the drug dealers.
I think that is, frankly, a nonsense. I'm astonished that a political party should be
Let me go back to that.
Policy's failing, isn't it? Policy's failing. More and more people are taking drugs. The cost goes up every year. We're losing the war on drugs. Let's face up to that.
Just say that from the neutral position of the chair, that he isn't the only. He may be one of the few political party bigwigs to be advocating this. May be the only one, but there are a number of people in the field, including police officers and former police officers, who do believe that decriminalisation in certain parts of the territory would ease rather than exacerbate the problem. Our next question, please.
Alan Price, does the panel believe that voicing concerns on immigration in itself makes you a racist?
Nigel Farage.
I've just never heard such dishonesty in all my life. Just never heard such dishonesty in all my life. Of course it's not racist to talk about immigration, and I'm very pleased that UKIP has talked about immigration from an entirely non-racist and non-sectarian perspective, and in doing so, we've managed to crush any chance of the BNP becoming a big party in this country, and I'm very proud of that. But what, of course, you're not hearing from Labour, or certainly not from the Lib Dems, and you won't hear it from the Tories either, is all they're talking about when they discuss immigration is non-EU immigration. Because they're all signed up to the fact that we have a total open door to unlimited numbers of people to come to this country from Eastern Europe. They're all signed up to getting Turkey to join the European Union, to give the free rights of movement to 75 million people from that country. They won't confront the facts that we have a migrant a minute coming into Britain, that 5,000 extra people a week settle in this country, that of the 600,000 houses that you have to build here in the southwest, it is estimated that 86% of them will go to first-generation migrants. There is not an honest debate about this in this country, and we are headed...
That's not true.
Well, I'm quoting you the Migration Watch figures. 86% of new housing will go to first-generation migrants.
Sorry, let's just get this clear. You're saying 86% of the projected new housing in the southwest will go to first-generation migrants.
Actually, interestingly, that is the Lib Dem policy, because Chris Hoon, who is the spokesman for the Lib Dem, has said, of the migratory flow into Britain, we can't allow it to come into London and the south east. It must be spread out across the rest of the country. The southwest has been told it has to build 600,000 new houses. Now, these
so
are
in your approach, hold on. In your approach, you would therefore apply the same rules to EU countries.
Yes.
As to others.
Of course.
And you would expect the same constraints to apply to British citizens who might want to migrate to Europe, yes?
This, of course, is the great false argument. The false argument is, but as many Brits work in the EU as EU workers work in Britain. In fact, that's not true. There are 287,000 British people working in EU countries. There are over 1.5 million EU citizens working here.
I'm asking you a very simple question, but leave aside the numbers. It's the question of rights and the rights that I'm asking about. Would you impose upon the British people the same restrictions as you would impose on Europeans?
What we are saying is that it is utterly wrong and irresponsible to have a total open door to the whole of Eastern Europe and potentially
I'm
Turkey.
sorry, that you've just accused other panellists of telling lies. You have failed to answer a very simple question. Is it yes or no? Would you impose the same restrictions on British citizens who might wish to live in Europe or elsewhere?
I want to have a proper work permit system so that foreign people can work here and we can work there, but not automatic rights of settlement, because we simply cannot afford it. We're the most overcrowded country in Europe. This is hopelessly out of control, and nobody in the three so-called main parties dares to admit it.
How does the panel feel about countryside pursuits, and in particular hunting with hounds?
Nigel Farage.
Well, it's amazing to think that 700 hours of parliamentary time was spent discussing this issue, when less than 5% of that was spent by the Labour government on the debate and discussion on whether to go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Which tells you a lot, not just about the Labour government, but about politics in general today. Look, the UKIP view as a party is that whether you want to smoke a cigarette in the back bar of a pub, whether you want to go and hunt foxes, should be a decision that you make for yourself. We don't want to live in a country where the nanny state makes all of these decisions for us, and I would fully support. I'd love to see this hunting ban and the smoking ban too, because it's all part of the same game. I'd love to see these things be repealed. I suspect, though, Nick...
And drugs decriminalised.
Well, I think there should be a royal commission, Peter, to discuss whether that should happen, absolutely. I want... You know, you've been control freaks in government, haven't you?
Smoke as much as you like. Take as many drugs as you like.
You have tried to take away choice and replace it with a nanny state, and frankly, 13 years on, you've failed in virtually everything you've done.
To find out more about who we are and what we stand for, go to the UK Independence Party website at www.ukip.org.